Welcome to a new episode of a Modern Musician Survival Guide podcast. In today's episode, I am really excited to be talking to one of my colleagues, an accomplished musician, a flutist, a composer, also an entrepreneur, something that we will be talking about in the musical field, but also in other fields, which is very interesting. And yeah, without further ado, Alessandro Baticci, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Ghenadie. I'm very happy to be here.
It's really great. We started talking, it was last year, I think in October in Bludenz, when we started talking about different things. I think we kind of knew of each other's existence, more or less, but we never actually had the chance to kind of talk, interact, and, get to one another. So today is also a really great continuation of our conversation in Bludenz. And just to kick things off, do you remember the moment where you said, I want to play the flute?
So I started my musical journey quite early on. So in my family, my brother and my sister were playing piano. So for me was my parents wanted us to play a musical instrument. So and at first I actually chose a different instrument. I was very intrigued by the corne anglaise, strangely or interestingly. It's a beautiful sound, a beautiful instrument, but I was too young to play the oboe. So we decided for the flute, which at the time I didn't know so much about it. Now thinking back, I'm actually glad of this choice, especially because of the repertoire and music that I do mainly, and it was very early, and then I fell in love with the sound of the instrument and started my discovery of it.
Yeah, it's a very interesting choice. Like this week I have, different days of open doors at the music schools, and it's always interesting to see how kids kind of choose the instruments, like they come, maybe they have already like love at first sight with an instrument or with its sound, or someone might come and say, you know what, I want this instrument, and then it happens that they hear or try another one, and it's just like, immediately, okay, that's my instrument. Yeah. And for you, was it already something that you were kind of considering from the beginning, becoming a professional musician, or did this kind of path present itself to you in the process?
I think that it became from two different sides. On one side, I enjoyed making music, and I soon discovered music that changed completely my perspective on what music was or is, and led me also into the field of composition quite early in a very autodidactic way. And the other thing was that I participated quite early as a flutist in a competition that is organized in Germany, Jugendmusiziert, which is quite well known. Because I was at a German school in Milan, and they were also organizing this competition. So I had the occasion over many years throughout high school and to travel to Germany to perform and see other musicians my age. And this was very important for me because it really open up what I think also the possibilities in Italy were regarding to doing music. I mean, I had very good teachers at the Conservatory in Milan. I'm really glad, but in general, this whole network of people my age making music very seriously at a young age was very fascinating for me, also because I found other people that were somehow drawn into this world as well. And I think that these two things, discovering some really important composers and music that I love, and being exposed and being part of this world helped to make this decision to pursue it as a career.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's kind of maybe also as a teenager or as a kid, it's kind of lonely seeing that, everyone is doing like the quote unquote normal stuff, like playing football, going out with friends, and you're like, you know what, I really want to do this thing, but I don't see anyone around me, kind of.
Yeah, I think that many musicians are outsiders in this regard, and for me it was the same. I did not fit in that well at first, and so I put all my interest, time, and effort into music. Also because I liked it, and then later on things of course changed. But I think that in the perspective of young people in school, for example, or in a context where you have other people doing all this the standard stuff, and you somehow feel a bit on the side. Later on, it's exactly what makes you stand out from the crowd. So it changes over time. This and also obviously forces you to be like studying music and playing music forces you to be alone a lot of time. It is like that. I mean, you do music with other people, but you still need to practice and study and do your thing. So, and this is a very important time. I think that being alone, learning to deal with things on your own, is part of the journey. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I feel like when we are kind of doing this, and I'm working, with kids at music school, so I kind of see them also today, and it's this comfort of being alone with yourself in a room for many hours, or for whatever it is, like digging into yourself and digging into what it means to play the instrument. It also builds life skills that can be translated in adult life into so many other different areas. And it's kind of this make it or break it moment. If you cannot handle being alone with yourself when you're a kid, you're almost guaranteed that it will be very difficult unless, you start developing the skills and putting it into practice and so on. And, from what I noticed, for example, in Italy, because I studied there in Trieste for many years, very often I would see, and this was not kind of my mindset, but I would often see my colleagues doing maybe conservatory and university at the same time, because the mentality was, yeah, instrument, sure, but it's very difficult to make a living and so on and so on. While, for example, in Germany, what I saw was it was possible to teach at a music school, to sustain yourself, and at the same time also study professionally and do something. Not all of my colleagues became or would become performing artists, but it's also not the point, because everyone has their own kind of set of skills that translates in different situations. It's not that we all need to become, I don't know, the first violin of the Berliner Philharmonie,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is also a cultural thing in Italy. I think it is quite widespread, unfortunately, since many years, that somehow, since there is no clear and career as a musician, many of the most famous Italian artists, I think, became famous abroad and then came back in Italy, celebrated also. And there is less financing than in other European countries, which draws talent there and makes, as a return, also the general level of education higher over time. So it is linked to a cultural thing. It is very dependent also on teachers and the people around you that shape your approach to it, that encourage you. So it's a very complicated So now talking about becoming a professional musician, I think that there are, apart from the talent and the interest for this way of living, I think that it relies a lot on the social economic conditions that you grow out of. So it is very complex, this matter. But for me, in general, the choice became more and more very obvious, and for a while also, thinking back now, especially this very early competition experience is a great thing, and it is also a curse. It is a curse because somehow you get driven into this aspect of the competition per se, or think about music making as a sort of competition, and so the easy damage there is that making music has something competitive and not something primarily joyful, because making music is something joyful and beautiful, but yeah, it's something that then over time with other teacher in a different context you just elaborate. But and I think that I know from other musicians that had a similar experience or had very early on success and a start of a career, that it's quite difficult to deal with it, to manage it well over time, because there is this work on expectations and what interests you and so on.
Yeah, no, these are all very interesting, and we have so many ways we can go with our conversation right now. But something I would definitely agree with you is the socio-economic aspect of a country in general matters. And also, for example, since this podcast is kind of meant for young professionals and also students who are thinking about developing their own careers after the studies or also during the studies, many times when I worked with students, they asked me, where should I go and study? I was like, difficult to say, but in my opinion, what I would advise, at least to consider, is when you are still learning and building up your skills and shaping yourself as a musician and as an artist, as an artistic personality, it is very important the teacher that you choose. It can also be in a small village somewhere, but the teacher is crucial. Once you're more or less molded and you have acquired the skills, then you can start moving into cities where there are opportunities, or even in countries where there are different opportunities. Because too many opportunities too early is almost as bad as too little opportunities later, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yes, I agree, and I think that it depends a bit in which moment of the career. I mean, for me, what I learned is that, so I studied at the conservatory in Italy, and then after finishing school, because in Italy the conservatory is parallel to the school. So after I finished school, I moved to Austria, to Vienna, to study music. And so I think for everyone around that age, 18, 19, if they are not already into some programs like, I don't know, Hochbegabten course, so the course for very talented rising young musicians. Mostly it's the time where you look for a teacher in a Hochschule, in a university. And there you have, of course, a lot of choices, and the one tends to be drawn to the name that they somehow know, or someone famous or well known in the musical world, or well known in the circle where they grow up. which is not necessarily always the best choice, I think. So it is very difficult because you cannot really know the people. But for me, often the people I had a lot of expectations for in teaching were not the ones that really gave me the hard skills I developed. And I think that the first teacher that really takes on the job of somehow molding you into a professional adult musician needs time. It needs at least 4 or 5 years time. For me, it was a very difficult process, but I stick to it, but I completely changed the way I play, and this, means very practically that you might carry from when you started to play an instrument a series of ways of playing or of movements of that are trained and learned by the muscles, and it just needs a lot of time to untrain them and retrain them again. So this is something that needs to be considered, that I think almost everyone goes through one of or two of those changing, transformative changes in their way of playing, and you need to have someone that brings you all the way and helps you in this. It takes time.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it was a shock to me that in Italy, but then we will go to the more interesting things, because this is not an episode about the educational systems. But, it was kind of weird for me because I come from an ex-Soviet Union country where the old Soviet Union style of teaching, which is very strong, is still applied. And to me, skipping, I know that colleagues of mine who started studying, I don't know, in Moscow or St. Petersburg, maybe I'm wrong, but still, you first need to do the specialized school, like 10 years. Then you go to the college, another 3 years. Only then can you be accepted to the academy, which is another 4 years. And then if you want to become a professor, it's another 2. So no, it takes a very long time, and they are in different phases, giving you different professors and different approaches to mastering yourself and mastering your instrument. So you might be Trifonov. Okay, you are Trifonov, but at the same time you still have, this process going on, because you need time to develop and to grow. It's only human. And just, I remember I had a roommate who was like, oh yeah, I came into the first year of bachelor's at the conservatory in Trieste. I will skip to the third year next year, and then I will go and do something completely else. I was like, I was shocked. Because for me it was a totally foreign concept.
Absolutely. No, but to go on to the topic of career, I think it's also very... So the musical world that there was when I started to study in Vienna, so around 2010, I think, 2010, was completely different than the musical world that I'm living in now and I'm working in. So, and the institutions are the most far behind in this process. So, of course, because they try to catch up, but in this process they are always this 5 or 8 years late. And the aspect of me choosing a career in music, I didn't really know what it was. For me, there were like orchestras, there were solists playing concerts, there were composers, contemporary music. So I knew about this world and I wanted to be part of it, but I didn't have a very concrete idea of what I wanted to do. And today I have the feeling that because of all the different options that are available, and also the the greater segmentation of the studies, where you have like you can do a master in music management, a master in old music, a master in contemporary music, a master in acoustics, and so as a musician, as an instrumentalist, you have a different path that you can take that are somehow pre-made, and that help you to guide into the different options. But the musical world is much more complex today, and it requires a set of skills around it that are essential, and that I think, we both learned a bit along the way. So it's completely different, I think.
Yeah, it's almost like a feeling that, institutions, like higher level institutions, they are preparing us for a job that, of course, the quality of what we do as a performer is very important, but at the same time, the reality outside, as soon as you go outside, that's kind of a groundwork, but you have no idea how to look for a commission, how to look for funding, how to look for concerts, all of these things. So, Alessandro, in your opinion, what would be like the let's say, top 3 to 5 skills that a young musician today needs to have when they go out of a conservatory environment or academical studies, let's say?
Well, if you are not extremely focused and absolutely certain that you want a position in an orchestra, for example, so you're extremely determined to this and pursue this, which is a very hard and beautiful also, but a very hard and narrow path, because today the ways auditions work, we all know how it is, how difficult it is, how big the concurrence is. So, and you're competing internationally. So it's became really like, when you look at the athletics at the Olympics, it's something like this. It's a form of sport. So if this is not the case, then I think there are a set of skills that you should have. And I think one of them is for sure flexibility, musical flexibility in the way you play, but also in the way you think as a person that interacts in the musical world with other people. And because since things are changing so rapidly, it's difficult. Probably things that today are certain, are very clear on how the music industry works in the next 10 or 5 years with AI, for example, will be completely different. So flexibility is a good skill. And more practically, I think that it is obvious for everyone today that social networks play a very important role in life of many people and are a possibility to show to the world what you do as an artist in a way. And I think that not everyone needs to be an influencer or because today also you have a lot of musicians born on social media that might not have an experience on stage, but are extremely popular on social media, and both into a classical world, but also in pop. And I think that a lot of people pursue this as a possibility. So focusing a lot of time on social media because somehow this gives them a lot of views and reach. But I think that you just need to be aware of how it works, how you can use it, how to create content. So these two things for sure. And the third thing that brings me here is a more wide thing. So it's to generally try to understand while you navigate into the everyday life, to understand what interests you inside of music and what is your strength. So I think that the earlier you are aware of your strength and what really interests you, makes it much easier to, over time, to go into this direction professionally. And I think it is essential for musicians, because as a musician you can do many different, quite a flexible job if you think about it, because you can do very different careers in the musical world. But the important thing is to understand that you want to do something that in 20 years from now you will still enjoy doing, and automatically this will make you find the way to do it, the path, and make you successful at it.
Mm-hmm. No, I love what you're saying, because of course flexibility nowadays, it's not this, okay, I only play, I don't know, I'm specialized only in contemporary music and that's only what I'm playing, or I'm specialized only in Mozart sonatas and that's the only thing that I'm playing. It became much more flexible. Secondly, digital tools and digital skills, understanding how that works, because we might love it, we might hate it, but it's here to stay. And it also allows people from all the corners of the world to know what we do and to find our audiences also digitally and online. And I think the most important skill is definitely the one that you said at the end.
I would add also that,
yes.
So I think that specializing in something is actually very important. And so the aspect of flexibility for me is related in general to keep an open eye. Also because for me, for example, I'm specialized in contemporary music, but a lot of inspiration comes also from other music that I'm exposed to, that I play. So I think that professionally you can be really specialized in what you do, but intellectually you need to keep a flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Like on this point, I really couldn't agree more, really. And, one of the things that I think is also very important is what you said at the end with regards to knowing kind of why you're doing what you're doing and what your strengths are. I had, like many musicians, I believe, sometimes this thing about deciding whether an opportunity is really an opportunity to pursue and to say yes to. And every single time, like, I was trying to develop a framework with ChatGPT to kind of have an idea of how to decide faster whether yes or no, because in our heads we're all the time, oh, but maybe there will be someone who will call me for another concert, or maybe there will be a colleague that conducts an ensemble and I could play there. It's all fantasies in a way. Maybe it can happen, maybe not, but and one question that ChatGPT wrote once was like, think about it in these terms: would you still agree to this if you weren't paid for it? Because if, as you said, 20 years down the road you're still happy doing that, then that's and it's also this thing about strengths, because I think we as musicians, we are kind of brought up in this competitive environment where there's only one orchestra position, one soloist position, one winner of a competition, one winner of an audition, and so on and so forth. So we are kind of taught to be the best between all of the competition. But I remember I did a course, Be Your Own Manager, with Bernhard Keres, who also lives in Vienna. I don't know if you know him, but he was basically saying that we need to understand what makes us special, because we might be 10 accordionists and flutists, but all of us have our own strengths and what makes us special. And that's the reason why people will come and hear us instead of the best flutist, the best accordionist, the best I don't know what. Also because what is the best in musical terms, So those are definitely three very important skills. And one more skill I would add is the one we were talking about, is creating a set of income streams that in parallel with what you do as your kind of main artistic activity can support you and can give you also a sense of kind of stability in a way. So let's develop upon this thing.
Yeah, I would put it in this way. So we were talking about knowing what you are good at. Once you find that out, which takes time, but you are the only one as a musician that knows what you are really best at. I mean, other people can also help you in that. They might open your eyes to things that you didn't notice. But once you find that, the first step is to go really deep into that. And once you do that and you really become an expert of this, then I think you have the possibility to monetize this skill, to say it really clearly. So, and this topic deserves a premise because what we were saying about taking different jobs or learning to say no. So if you are working as a freelance musician, I think that at the very beginning you need to say yes to everything. Regardless, because you need to discover also what the different options are, and then over time, when you build up certain relationships with musicians or groups, then you can somehow know when to pass on something. And it's difficult because people, of course, think, okay, I live from this, so if I say no, somehow other people will replace me and so on. And here is where the aspect that we were mentioning comes in, because if you are specialized in something, many people are interested in what you do. And so today I think that there are so many different possibilities for young musicians from their home, from where they are, without really a lot of effort compared to what we usually do as a musician, right? So, of course, it is a lot of work, but as a musician, you're learned to challenges and difficult things. So, it makes it very easy for us, I think, to learn new things, new software, completely new approach to something. So I think that there are a lot of possibilities where you can package your knowledge in a way that can help you to put some money on the side and grow something else that somehow gives you a counterbalance from your everyday life, right? So if you are a successful I don't know, chamber musician playing 200, 250 concerts a year, this is not for you. You are already doing very fine. But I think that there are moments when people play less because they have other obligation or things can happen. So in general, somehow it is a way to develop a plan B, or also something that goes in parallel, which is not completely off from what you do as a musician, and in return actually can also help you in your career as a musician. So it is a very difficult balance, because over the years I've met actually for one of my businesses a lot of influencers in music, and I've seen it all. I've seen from classically trained musicians starting to do content about being young professionals, like the typical life of a Hochschule student in Germany or Sweden. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, somehow there is a very wide spectrum, and I think that everyone has to understand where they are on the line and what they are confident doing, and I think it can teach you a lot of lessons to have a sort of product can be a CD, and an album, in fact, is a product. But an ebook, an accessoire, those are all things throughout which you learn also a lot about placing something, which can be a program for a concert in a festival, and a product on different groups or context. So it's definitely not time that you lose in trying to develop something, write a book, put your thoughts into something, and try to sell it and offer it to people. So I think that it is something that today many musicians do, and it became very easy to do today because the tools are extremely accessible. It started with WooCommerce, then Shopify, but then became much more specific, that you would have platforms that were good for certain type of products, SEO optimized here, other things there. Then, of course, with AI, things rapidly changed, and we can also talk a bit about that. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that it is something that everyone can learn a lot from.
And I will ask you about your example, and I think what you're talking about is building assets, which, for musicians who hear this term for the first time, to the listeners of a podcast, assets are the things that bring you money. Maybe they require a small investment at the beginning, but for example, if let's say you're recording a track, a cover of something, and you're distributing it on the platforms, the royalties that you get, that track becomes an asset that brings in a certain amount of money. Or if you have a specific technique or your specific view of how an instrument should be taught to beginners, for example, you could put together a PDF with everything that you know, everything that you kind of filtered and discovered, and also sell it through Amazon. As Alessandro was saying, there are really a lot of ways of selling. The best way would be, of course, somewhere that kind of belongs to you, so your website. But of course, also the other things are also possible, and there are many assets that person can do. Alessandro, if I'm not wrong, you also, through your kind of research of extending the flute and the sounds of a flute, you actually made a sort of an e-commerce of flute parts, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah. Could you
Exactly.
tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So this was a bit my first experience in developing a product, which then became a brand. And it came completely by chance, because I developed this sound solution for flute called Woodify, which is a wooden ring that you can put on the head joint of flutes, and it changes the way the head joints vibrates and respond. So it changes the way the instrument responds and allows you to play in a certain different way that musicians like and are interested in. And then from then on, I developed various solutions. But at the very beginning, and this is true for most entrepreneurs, it was something that I was looking for myself. So at the time, I just started to study in Vienna at the university. I had a very good flute and was very happy, but I was studying in a context in Vienna where they have a very specific sound aesthetics for the flute sound. It's a very dark and a very centered, heavy sound, which I really like. And so I was trying to find a way to achieve this kind of sound on my flute through various experiments. And at the time, I was in contact with a flute workshop in Vienna, which one of the first students of my teacher at university founded years ago, and that today is a very successful business in Vienna. And they did a lot of research and had a lot of machines, so I kind of learned a lot about the acoustics of the flute. This all while studying at the university, so it was just part of something that interested me and drew me. So, at a certain point, I had an idea to develop something that could maybe change the way the flute worked. And so I tried at home, buying different materials, reading how to work them and to put it together. And so over the course of a year and a half or two, I came to a product and a design that really worked for me. And so I started to play with this solution. And then over time, I thought, actually, it could be interesting also for other musicians. So it was not really I was not drawn from the very beginning, like, how can I monetize? I just stepped into it. I had something, and then I said, okay, I can sell this product, and how can I do that? I need a website. So I started to build the website, and then so slowly over time, I built the brand and the network of dealers and distributors. Today, Woodify is played all around the world by many musicians. I have different distributors in the US, in Japan, in Europe, and it's produced all in Vienna, and I'm extremely happy. It's been a very long journey, and I think I made all the possible mistakes that I could do, but for me it was more important the process and the skills I learned along the way, because those are for me now a part of skills that if I in some years, I don't know, I stumble upon a new idea and something that I think I can develop or invent, then the process to bring it out, it's much faster, because you already know what things you need, what is the to-do list.
Yeah. Did you get hooked in this process? But you're like, you know what, this is actually quite cool.
Absolutely, in the process of designing. I mean, in this case also it's a bit, since I invented the product, I had to develop all the different aspects from scratch. So and so it was a lot of try and error, and this surely got me hooked. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting what you're saying, because many times we're like, or people, like, if you go to, like, on social media, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, you hear so much kind of bad advice about, oh, you need to, well, it's not really bad advice, but again, if you have nothing to do with the industry, you have no idea how something works, and you get this advice online of find something, a problem that you can solve for a lot of people, and then you'll get rich. And you're like, that's not, in principle, maybe that is how it works. And in your case, you were trying to solve your own kind of problem, or you were interested in changing something about your playing. And then, this maybe was something useful for solving a problem for many other people. And then you went into it.
Yeah,
and,
but there is, I don't know who said it, but there is this way of saying that there are two types of entrepreneurs, and the ones that analyze a market and understand what needs there are, and then develops or researches a solution that fits this market, okay? This is a very difficult enterprise, in my opinion. And
Yes.
and then there is the other one, who is the person that experience every day something that they don't like, a problem in the usability of anything. Can be an object that you use every day, can be something that you need to click somewhere online in order to do something else, but a problem that bothers you, and you find yourself a simple solution for you, and then out of this you develop a product for others. And I think that most musicians and artists that work as entrepreneurs, I think that have this kind of approach.
The second one.
Rather than the other one. The other one is okay. There's nothing good or bad in both. It just requires much more skills that I don't have I studied music. Of course, I did a lot of work also as an entrepreneur, but I don't have the skills to analyze market and understand exactly. So, it's a different kind of job, but there are enough situations where you find yourself that you find problems that are in search of a solution. And I agree in this case that it is this the way to do a business, right? Because if people need something, they will be willing to pay something for it.
Absolutely, yes, if you solve a problem for someone. But I think that's the first type of people that you're saying about is more predominant in a way, I think, in my opinion. And it's also very... what's the saying, that 9 out of 10 businesses fail in the first 3 years or something. And I believe maybe that's the reason why, because if you're kind of trying to adapt to the market all the time changes. But if you solve a problem that you solve for yourself, that's something that maybe millions of people are struggling with, that's kind of an evergreen problem and solution.
Yeah, well... that's true. I also say that probably statistically it might be the other way around, because the blind spot that you have as a person that, okay, this is a problem and this is the perfect solution for it, is that you might be, in your own delusion, and maybe other people don't see it as a big problem, whereas the other mindset allows you to pivot more quickly. Often I think that most businesses fail because they don't pivot early enough. So if you have evidence that what you do doesn't work, or even though it's positioned well and so on, then you need to pivot. And there is a lot of resistance also in your mind, because you are thinking and working since months on something, and then you immediately need to look at a totally different market solution. It's very painful and it's very difficult, but it is what might keep you alive we were starting to talk about ways to make more income as a musician. Now we come in the problems of startups.
But I think we will have.
Not every side hustle needs to be a startup, and not every product is a company. So in general, no. If you have a product, something that you can sell, this is something. Building a company, this is a totally different job. So the two things can be separate.
Alessandro, I think we will have you on a second episode of a podcast to talk about these things and go deeper, because it's such a huge world. And I think we musicians, with the set of skills that we developed, we're quite entrepreneurial from the perspective of putting together a program. The discipline to get the product, that program, the concert, to prepare it and put it on stage, finding the stage, publicity, and so on and so forth. So it's a very entrepreneurial job. Actually, it's just that we're kind of very uncomfortable with money many times, kind of because we need to give a value, a number to something that for us is invaluable in a way. So
Yeah, but for every musician, so because I can imagine some people thinking, yeah, but what does it mean to be entrepreneurial, to do this? In a way, if you have a wind quintet or a string quartet and you organize a concert somewhere, you are already doing it all. You're organizing the venue, you're organizing the chairs. Are there enough chairs for people? It's all these stupid little problems that you solve once at a time. It's not difficult. Managing an ensemble or a chamber music group, making outreach here, prepare the program there, a rehearsal plan. It is the same thing.
As running a company. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like cold calls, cold emails,
Yeah,
like
it's all
checking
about,
everything. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's absolutely, yeah. Are you up for a quick fire round with 5 questions?
Yes.
And the first question for you is, what is one thing about being a musician that you had to unlearn?
Ooh, this is tricky. Well, I think.
What's something that you believed was, that's the way it works, and then you just like at one point you're like, no, actually, no, it doesn't work that way for musicians.
Yeah, I think like imposing a musical idea. It's not something that I learned. It's just something that I
Lived
did along
from.
the way. Yeah, and it doesn't work. You need to share.
Is it only musical ideas, or does it also have to do with like information that you have that can benefit your colleagues?
No, it's mostly about like ideas for interpretation or what we should play here.
Okay. Great. It's also tying into that flexibility thing that we were talking about, right?
Yes,
like being
exactly.
like, you know what? Okay, let's be flexible. I have this idea, you have this, but let's try it out. Great. So, second question: what's the best career advice you ever got?
The best career advice I ever got was a teacher at a university in Vienna that while everyone around me, many people were choosing to do an academic career, to do a PhD, he said to me, look, if you want to build a company or make products, do products and you don't need to make research. And this was a bit harsh, could be, but actually it was the best thing I could hear. Someone telling me the university now is probably not the best place for you, and I'm glad I chose.
Yeah, no, I can understand why it can be kind of like harsh to hear. Like what you think?
But for me, it wasn't. I was. It was actually eye-opening. But yeah.
Nice. And in relationship with the second question, the third one is, what's the worst career advice that you ever got?
The worst career advice I got at a competition. It was not really an advice, but it was a sentence that was said to me that made me understand that this whole thing was not for me. So I was at one of these big international flute competitions, and I was talking with someone from the jury, and after the prize, I was in the final of this competition, but I didn't win the first prize. And then he said to me that here in this competition we don't give the first prize for amazing musicians, but we give it for amazing flute playing. And so I don't know if the translation doesn't give it a lot of, so it doesn't help. But in fact, it was a way to say that people with too strong personalities is not the right fit for a classical music competition, which is a a pre-step for playing in an orchestra if you're not a violin player or piano, that you can pursue a soloist career. So, and when I heard that, I understood that I was in the wrong place, that since I don't want to be in an orchestra, playing beautifully is not really what is interests me, but other things.
Yeah, it's not a bad career advice, but at the same time, it's kind of eye-opening to see, like, okay, there's this environment that I don't want to be kind of
the word that this person implied with this was what made it bad in a way. No?
Yeah, absolutely. And the fourth question is, what do you see musicians do wrong over and over again? So let's say, what's one mistake you see musicians doing over and over again?
Being stubborn. Being stubborn in things that they know. And not trying to look one step further. In many cases,
being closed-minded, kind of.
It's a own bias.
Yeah, makes sense. And the last question for you, Alessandro: what is one habit that keeps you stay consistent or grounded?
Well, I must say that sports is for sure something that helps me being grounded, and I travel. So I live between Vienna and Amsterdam at the moment. So I'm half of the year in one place and half in the other. And in fact, I'm consistently since the last years traveling 5 to 6 months a year anyway. So I'm constantly somewhere, but I still try to keep up. So to be consistent in this, and this especially I changed or made it a non-negotiable since 2 years, 1 year and a half, and it really helped me to get more, much more focused and also more relaxed, more confident with myself. And it doesn't need to be like, high. I have no ambitions in the world of sport, and neither physically nor aesthetically. It's just something that I do that keeps me and keeps all the pain. I speak of muscle tension that comes. I mean, playing the flute is one of the worst instruments because it's completely disbalanced. I think it's even worse than playing the violin for the body. But doing sports on a regular basis for me was really the moment where I saw I have no pain at all. And it was not always like that. So it's I'm happy, and this helps me stay grounded.
Great. Alessandro, where can people find you online? Where can they know more about you, read more about you?
So yeah, I have a website, alessandrobaticci.com, and there I post all the concerts and events that I do. So there is a section with upcoming events where people can see. Otherwise, Instagram, for sure. I share many things of what I do during concerts or in shows when I'm traveling. So I try to share, not too much, but every once in a while. And my music is spread around SoundCloud and YouTube.
I will link all of the websites that you mentioned and all of your different profiles in the description of this episode. Alessandro, it has been a really great pleasure talking to you, and I'm really looking forward for a part 2
Yes,
for this
absolutely.
very interesting conversation. Yeah. Thank you again.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you very much, Ghenadie.
Thank you, Alessandro.